Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home. Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Welcome to the Freebirth Society podcast. This is a radical space for women who are ready to celebrate their autonomous choices in birth, motherhood, and beyond. Together, we'll learn about wild birth through personal narrative, we'll explore the politics of birth, and we'll analyze everything that relates to our lives as women from a feminist perspective. Here's your host, Emily Saldea.
It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Hi, women. Today I am joined by Arie, a radical birthkeeper graduate who free-birthed her first baby after the school, supported by her partner and her mom. Since RBK doors are open right now, we have to highlight these epic women who experienced major transformation during and after the program. So when Arie got pregnant, she knew she would stay home. She didn't want to hire a professional, but she did deeply want to have her mom there, despite the fact that they were not on speaking terms. So Arie took the conscious steps to repair their relationship. And in the end, her mother held perfect space, so much healing took place, and Arie free births a perfect little boy. There are just a few short weeks left to grab your place with us in 2024's Radical Birthkeeper School. Invest in yourself. Invest in the world. Be a part of creating the birth culture that you wish to see. It really is that simple. I did it. You can too. Yo and I are here to guide you. So go to radicalbirthkeeperschool.com and step into your calling. Doors will be closing soon. All right, enjoy the show. Welcome to the show, Arie.
Thank you for having me.
This is a long time coming. I've known you for a while now. You came to MRF the second year or the first year?
It was the second year, and it was just a couple months after I graduated RBK. So, yeah.
I have the visual, it's gonna sound weird, but I have that epic picture of your butt in the moonlight in my mind. When I think of you, I think of that picture. It was you and maybe 3 other women.
Yeah.
Such a good picture.
Thank you. Thank you. It was fun. People were walking by us like, what are they doing? And then we were showing them the pictures and they wanted to join. It started with like 2 of us and then it
came out so good.
5.
I love it. So you recently had your first little baby. So take us to wherever you want to start. You know, who were you when you got pregnant? What decisions did you make? When did you know you were going to do this crazy thing called free birth? Tell us everything.
Okay, I'll start with your last question, which is when did I know I was going to free birth? So growing up, my mom, she has me and my sister, and she always would talk about how I was a natural birth at the hospital, but a natural birth. And my sister, she had an epidural, and she was like, always go to the hospital at the last minute and don't ever get an epidural, like just pushed out. She was like, it hurts, but it all goes away the minute the baby comes out, and it's so much better than like the stuff that they give you. The recovery is better. So I always had it in my mind, don't do that, no meds. And then when I was like maybe 8 or 9, I seen The Blue Lagoon and I love that movie. And I remember it getting to the scene where she births her baby in the jungle, like next to a tree by herself. And I was like, holy shit, I want to do that. So I always had that picture in my mind. Not necessarily having a baby in a jungle, but just on my own. Like, this is cool. Nature's cool. Everything about the movie was like they just eat from the land. And, you know, it was just very, very enticing for me. And so with that and my mom's story of my birth and my sister's birth, I always knew home birth, home birth, home birth. That was what I had in my mind. And then as I got older and I was really sick, I was really, really sick, like chronically ill. Can't tell you what
Whoa.
from all throughout like high school. And it just got worse. Like as soon as I graduated, it just kept getting worse. I was in full body pain all the time. I had went to the ER several times and
Oh my
like
God.
I just stopped going because they would give me all these crazy drugs and I'd still be in pain and then not even at home in my own bed. So I was dealing with that, and that would happen every couple months. I was getting chronic infections, just all this crazy stuff. And I got really, because I do not come from like a health conscious family at all. Um, and so the idea of going vegan was like, whoa, that's crazy. But I literally remember the day I was like crying, so miserable, in pain. And I was like, if I just have to eat grass, then that's what I'm gonna do. That's what it takes to feel better. And now I understand it's like unprocessed foods that are the big thing.
Mm.
At the time, that was just my knowledge. Like I needed to,
Mm-hmm.
and because of that, um, this I came across this herbalist slash doula who only attended home births that didn't have a midwife. So there wasn't this word free birth.
Oh.
I knew like from her teachings that that's what I wanted to do. Like I
And
wanted
what's her name?
her name is Crystal. Crystal, the alkaline doula. That's what she.
Someone else just mentioned her. I gotta have her on the podcast. Someone else I just had on. Who was it? Now I can't remember who it was. Said the same thing that that was her like first initiation. That's so cool.
Yeah, she's awesome. And yeah, I just loved it and everything that she would talk about, how we like herbs can heal us and we don't need, we don't
Mm-hmm.
need the system basically. And her kids didn't like have birth certificates and all these things. And I was like, okay, that made sense. They felt very aligned. And the idea of helping women do the same thing felt very aligned. So then obviously once I got pregnant, that was the natural continuation of everything, just to have him at home by myself. Well, without any medical providers. Yeah, so that's what I did. And I think luckily, like my partner was on board with it from the beginning. He's like, yeah, like we're not going to the hospital. No, you don't need a midwife. You can do this. Like I hear you talk about it all the time. So I didn't have any issues with that. But throughout my pregnancy, like I felt very comfortable doing it just him and I at home. But and I knew I didn't want to hire anyone because I don't know anyone well enough to where like an RBK or anything to where I would trust them to come into such a vulnerable space. So I knew that, but I also felt sad at the thought of not having my mom there.
Mm.
But we weren't really on speaking terms.
Ah, okay.
So it was like this whole thing. And that was a really, really that was probably like the biggest struggle I had throughout my pregnancy from beginning to like almost the end was dang, I know that's who I want there, but I don't think I can have it.
Mm.
Yeah. But it ended up working out. She came and supported me, and that was great.
So when did you take the RBK school in relationship to when you get pregnant?
Mm, I think
Like a year earlier?
I think so. Yeah. Probably a year. I
And
don't,
then oh, go ahead.
what year was the second MRF thing?
Oh, 2022.
2022. So then, yeah, 2022, I get pregnant 2023 in January.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, right, because you just birthed very recently.
Yeah.
So, did you know heading into this pregnancy that you were going to do a wild pregnancy, or did you do a wild pregnancy?
I did do a wild pregnancy, but I did know, I don't know, it feels like you just kind of do things the way that you live naturally. Like I don't go to the doctor normally, so it didn't make sense to me to start going all of a sudden because I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
But I also knew from like other things I'd heard and research I did that if I wanted a birth certificate and a social and all those things that I needed, it would be much easier to get them if I had like the pregnancy verification. Um, yeah, so I went and got that like at 6 weeks. I like went and verified the pregnancy, just like a P test. And
Mm-hmm.
then what happened? Oh, at the end of my pregnancy, when I was ready to start maternity leave, someone told me that because I was a nanny and then I had a part-time office job at the time. And someone told me that I could get paid through the state from like 36 weeks onward. But I needed a doctor's appointment for that, so I went and had a doctor's appointment, and they thought I was psycho. They thought I was nuts. They were like, "What do you mean you don't have any previous care? Like you weren't caring for your baby?"
What'd you say?
I was like, "Yeah, I seeked an alternative method of care. No, I don't have any records to show you." They did not like that. They thought I was nuts. And then the doctor, and this was like the nurses and the assistants. When the doctor walked in, the first thing out of her mouth was, "I'm glad you don't have high blood pressure." And I was like, what? Yeah, it was weird.
Ew.
Of course I don't have, I was like, I know I don't have high blood pressure. I've never had high blood pressure.
That's also like kind of blatantly racist
Because it's, yeah, a black
because
thing.
it's associated to Black women. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I felt. That's exactly how I felt. Um, so of course, the rest of the visit was no fun.
Yeah, super awkward. God. Okay, well, whatever. You did what you had to do to get what you wanted, right? To use
Right.
use the system to get what you wanted. And
Yeah.
so what was kind of how would you summarize like the work of your pregnancy? It sounds like your mom, your mother wound was a big part of that. Like what else is there to say about this pregnancy?
Um, I think that just like right, it started with the grief because um I'm pretty, yeah. So January was when I found out I was pregnant, and I had just like my dad almost died. So it was like dealing with all that, going back to the state where I was in an abusive relationship for the first time, like since I left, like flee
Whoa.
the state. Like I went back just to see my dad. So that was a big thing. This was before I knew I was pregnant, but looking back, it's like all those hormones, they start doing stuff right away. Like you can feel the difference in the sensitivity and stuff right away. But anyways, it was a lot of grief, and I had to and a lot of fear. Um, yeah, I was really scared because I had spent months prior to this where I had just had it in my mind that I might never be a mom. And if I was going to be a mom, it wouldn't be till I was like 35 and had
Mm,
done X, Y, and Z.
mm,
And I was like drilling that point home to everyone. Even in North Dakota, that's where I went when my dad was, that's where my dad lives. Even when I was there, I was visiting like my sister or my brother and like my friend and meeting their kids for the first time and telling them, yeah, like these are great, nieces and nephews, but I don't think I'm gonna do this. And they all laughed at me, like, of course you're gonna be a mom, Arie, like you're meant to be a mom. But I was like, no, like I'm not having
So
kids.
what was behind that of thinking it was a no for you?
I had just made up in my mind that there was no, and I guess it's not entirely just from my own mind, but there's no way to do all the things you want to do if you have kids too young,
Mm,
you know? Yeah, that was just kind of like what I had in my
gotcha.
head. And I had just like this new found ambition and like drive to do all these things. So I was like, oh, a kid can't get in the way of that. And then on top of that, well, because of that, I was like, okay, well, I have to consider having an abortion. I have to think about this.
Hmm.
And then eventually, like a few days after taking the test, I realized, no, you don't. Like, you're terrified because it's not what you want to do. Like, it doesn't matter if this isn't how you thought it would happen or the age you thought it would happen. It doesn't matter. Like, you obviously want this baby, so have the baby. Like, and then it doesn't matter what anyone thinks about it either. And once I came to that conclusion, most of the fear just kind of like left. Because
Hmm.
it wasn't fear of being a mom, it was just fear of just a bunch of meaningless things.
Yeah. Well, it's all like made up
Yeah,
until you
literally.
actually are dealing with it.
Yeah, and that's what I've told people too, like whether you, because I was seriously like contemplating an abortion, and I'm like, if you do it because that's what you want to do, and that has to be the only reason. And if you want to keep your baby, do it because that's what you want to do, and let that be the only reason. Like, no outside factors should play a part in your decision because you're the one that, you're
Has
the
to
only
live with
one
it.
that, yeah.
Yeah,
So.
big deal.
Yeah, so I think the fear of that in the beginning and then moving through the grief um, of like my relationship with my mom was big. I was really, really sad, and then I felt guilty for being so sad while being pregnant.
Hmm.
And eventually I came to the understanding that like if we weren't meant to cry while we were pregnant, we wouldn't be able to cry. Like I don't
Hmm.
think that me crying is gonna like seriously harm my baby. So I should probably let go of that guilt. And that served me very well. And eventually, I talked to my mom again, and we're really like hot and cold. And it's funny because I've realized a lot in the past few months how much we both try to play it cool
Hmm.
with each other. I remember when I finally told Ray, my partner, I'm gonna ask my mom if she wants to come be at the birth, and I'm gonna tell her she can't be freaking out and stuff. Like, I only want her there for emotional support, and I'm gonna just see what she says. And I was so nervous. I felt like I was asking someone to like marry me or
I
something.
mean, it's pretty vulnerable.
Yeah, and I remember I went in there and I was like, okay, I have to be really calm before I go in here. So I got myself together and went and asked her, like, okay, mom, do you think you'd be comfortable being at my birth? Because I'm doing it at home. I'm not going to the hospital. So if you're comfortable with that, I would like you to be there. And her whole entire body language, she was so excited. Like I could
Aw.
tell she was so excited and so happy, but she was trying to play it cool too. And it's just funny because I don't understand why we do that, but it was
Well,
a
we're
relief.
guarded. We're guarded. We have
Yeah.
baggage.
Yeah.
So what might you want to say about the jump from not being on speaking terms to inviting her to your birth? That's like a pretty big
Yeah.
shift.
I think it's because just accepting my mom for who she is and understanding where I think when you like mm, not having the parent that you wish you had or like have in your mind that you should have had, like there's grief that comes with that. Like you grieve the parent you think you should have. And so I think I was really deep into that. And it felt so intense and so big at first that in my mind, not speaking was the only way to like protect myself. And then I realized, like, no, there's all these great things that come from this relationship with your mom, regardless of what you're not getting. And you know how to protect yourself from the things that you don't want and the parts of the relationship you don't want. So just let it be and stop torturing yourself because you don't want to not speak to your mom, you
Right.
know? Um, yeah. And I think she needed some time to cool down too. So after a few months had passed, it was just like little things here and there. I'd see her here and there. She came to my baby shower and like helped put it together and stuff like that. So we made amends slowly, piece by piece, throughout like the middle to the end of my pregnancy. And yeah, I finally decided I felt comfortable enough asking her to be there because I knew she would help me. Like I knew she would be the emotional support that I wanted.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And did she grapple much with the lack of a medical provider there?
A little. It was funny. She said yes right away that she'd come and that she'd keep her cool and not be all scared or anything. And then the next day it was, do you have a bulb sectioner? And then, yeah.
So it begins. She's
And
like, I'm
then,
the midwife now, right?
right. Yeah, she asked that. She was like, I think I might get an oxygen tank. And I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
Yeah, I declined. I was like, Mom, everything's gonna be okay if it's not okay. If it's genuinely not okay, the hospital has all those things. Like, we don't need to do that because no, we're not doing that. Yeah, she brought up a couple random things and I would just tell her no or educate her about why certain things were completely unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
And she was fine with it. She just moved right along.
Cool.
When the baby was born, she called me one day and was like, okay, I'm looking at your birth plan, and if the baby is coming out of you, it says don't touch the baby until you touch the baby, or that you want Ray to catch the baby. But if the baby's gonna fall, can I catch the baby? I don't want to offend anyone. Do you want me to just let the baby hit the floor? Like, just funny stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it wasn't much of an issue for her, I don't think.
Cute. It sounds like she really tried.
Yeah, she did.
That's
She
awesome.
did. I'm glad it worked out the way that it did for sure.
So, anything else you want to say about pregnancy or the end of pregnancy before you move into your birth story?
Hmm. Okay, so the I would like to say something. Like there is really, really something in our subconscious that like even someone like me who I would say knows quite a bit about birth, like I've intentionally educated myself about birth, hands-off birth, undisturbed birth, and ways to support ourselves naturally and get the outcomes that we want. And I understand why I don't want the things that the medical system has to offer. And after one appointment with that doctor, all of a sudden, all these fears popped in my head. Like all the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that she said to me, even though I knew
Mm-hmm.
logically that I was fine,
Totally.
she brought up placenta previa. She brought up what else? She brought up basically all the things that
Mm-hmm.
could potentially make a bloody crime scene in my home. Like, and all the reasons why my baby could die. Like she did all of this very, very quickly in this one appointment, and it was enough to have me questioning myself, like, can I really do this? Am
Sure.
I willing to take this much responsibility? Will I forgive myself if something goes wrong? But of course, basically the same thing that got me through all of it. Is just reminding myself what I do believe in, which is we don't have that much control, no matter how much we like to pretend that we do. We don't control life and death,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so I'm gonna do what feels right to me and do my best to follow my intuition and listen to what my body's telling me. But aside from that, I'm not God and I can't magically become God because I decided I want to survive or my baby to survive or whatever, you know? Um, I had to have that conversation over and over with myself at the end.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
interesting to untangle like facts from beliefs, right? Because it's certainly a belief that many people have taken on that you can control or you can mitigate risk and increase chances of survival by birthing in the hospital system. But
Hmm.
it's a belief, it's not a fact,
Right.
right? And people often think what they believe are facts,
Hmm.
but it's not. It's a really so believing that you can control life and death, which I think many people think you can,
Right.
specifically around what we're talking about, is just like it's a belief. It's not actually true. And then we're over here going, well, actually, I mean, we know that women and babies are getting murdered in the system. You
Hmm.
know, they're dying at atrocious rates.
Yeah.
And we don't actually see that in the free birth world,
Right.
which is not I mean there are stillbirths. I don't want to pretend there aren't, but I'm not seeing maternal deaths like we're seeing in the
Right.
system, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, yeah, I think anyone who's making this choice, you have to come to terms with that. And if you are a person who wants to control every little thing, it's going to be that much harder. Definitely, I don't think it's possible to get through a wild pregnancy without understanding that. Because
Yeah.
there's just too much. And especially a first pregnancy where you're not
Mhm.
familiar with all the sensations of pregnancy,
Yeah.
how uncomfortable it can get, it's easy to want to like cop out and be like, let me go hand this all over to someone else because I don't want to deal with it. And our tolerance for sitting with fear is so low that yeah, you get scared, and the first thing is run to the system.
And sitting with the unknown, right? This
Yes.
idea that someone can tell you anything.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I had I had done, what is it? There's like you can order like a test to tell you the gender of the baby. Like you just do it at home and send it in. And I was like, there's literally no point in me doing this because I'm not even going to believe what it says because it's not 100%. And my luck would be to do it and it tells me the wrong gender anyway. So I was like, no, I'm not
That's
even doing
funny.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, it's just too epic finding out at birth.
Yeah.
It's
It
too
was
epic.
pretty
It's
cool.
like one of the greatest surprise opportunities you get in your entire life. It's crazy that the vast majority of women are just like, nah, I'm good. Nah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just skip over this like pretty epic
Yeah.
surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then what happens as you move into your birth story?
Okay, so I had been having so many practice contractions at the end of my pregnancy. But I knew better than to like jump the gun and think it was labor,
Yeah.
thankfully. And that week specific, I had him on a Saturday, and I think that Tuesday I went on a walk and I walked my whole entire pregnancy. It was like my favorite thing to do and just walks. And so I went on my walk and I was walking so fast. And when I came back home, I went to the bathroom and I had some of my mucus plug come out. So I was so excited. That paired with like all the practice contractions I had been having. And I was like, okay, like it's happening soon. Because I was already what? I was 41. Yeah, I was in week 41. So in my mind, I'm like, it has to be any day now, but am I going to be a 44 weeker? Like, am I going to go this far? I hope not. So I got excited when I seen that, and then nothing the next day, and then nothing the next day, and till the next morning when I woke up, I think it was Friday morning. I woke up and I had some bloody show and I got excited and I was having it didn't feel like practice, you know. I was like, okay, these feel a little more intense and they're not stopping when I eat or when I switch up my position or anything. They're staying consistent. But who knows? I'm gonna just go do what I need to do for the day. So I went and ran every errand possible. I remember being in the grocery store and having to stop, and I was like holding my belly, swaying with my eyes closed in the aisles, and I was like, they're gonna kick me out of here, thinking I'm gonna birth in their grocery store. And it was like that. Basically, all the errands I did for the day were like that. I went and got my last batch of herbs to make my prenatal tea, just in case I was gonna be pregnant for quite some time longer. I came home, made it, drank some, and the contractions kept happening. So what was it? I think around a little after lunchtime, Ray asked me, he's like, should I come home after work or is it cool if I go? One of his coworkers it was their birthday. So he was like, should I come home after work or is it cool to go out with them after? And I was like, oh, it's fine. Like, go ahead. I'm fine. I'm not in labor.
Whatever. I would be like, get your ass home.
And he works an hour away. He works an hour away. So, yeah, in my head, I was just trying to not jump the gun and get excited. But by the time 3 o'clock came, which is when he gets off of work, I was like, I think you should come home. So he came home. He asked me if I was in labor. I said probably not, but just to be safe, like just come home. He came home. We went to Whole Foods to fill up our like big water things. And I remember in the parking lot, he was like, I think you should get back in the car. And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. I'm gonna get back in the car. Um, and then when he came back, he asked me if we should just go home. I was like, no, we're going to dinner still. Like, I still want to
Hmm.
go get dinner. So we went and got Thai food. And that's when I knew I was in labor for sure. I was like having these crazy contractions all throughout dinner. And they weren't stopping. And I told myself, okay, I'm not going to believe it unless we walk back up this hill to the car and my contractions don't stop. And we did, and they didn't stop. And so I was like, okay, this is it. And we got home. I tried to sleep. I probably got maybe an hour combined of like mini naps worth of sleep that night. And I just kept moving through the motions. I actually had planned to have two of my sisters come to my birth. And so the next morning, it's like 7 a.m. I knew for sure I was in labor at 7 p.m. and it was like 7 a.m. the next day. And I told him, okay, you can tell my mom it's time to come over. Um, but I was crying. I was crying and he asked me, why are you crying? And I told him, I don't want my sisters to come anymore. And I feel bad. I feel like I have to let them come.
No.
I can't just tell them no. And this is a theme in our relationship and what I love about him so much. He was just like, yes, you can. And in my mind, I was like, wow, yes, I can. I can tell them no. So I did. I told them to just go hang out at my mom's house until it was time to come over after I had the baby. And I'm so glad that I did that because I would have totally sabotaged my whole birth experience. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, the idea of having anyone other than him and my mom there made me so
Yeah.
anxious.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was crying. It made me so
Totally.
anxious. So I'm just glad that I said no to that.
Yeah.
Um, and then even my mom, like I was sure that I wanted her here, and it still changes things, you know? Like as soon as she showed up, Ray finally went to take his nap because remember we hadn't slept in like quite some time. He went to take a nap as soon as my mom got here, and it felt like it just took
Mm-hmm.
me out of the flow. We were in such a rhythm and it just stopped.
Yeah.
Not that my labor stopped, but everything kind of felt like it slowed down. And mentally, I didn't feel like I could handle it anymore. And I felt I had made up this story that it was my fault that my labor wasn't progressing right and that I should just do it. I should just be better at this. Like I should know what to do and I should relax more. And if I just relax more, the baby would be here already and all these things. And so then I was playing with my head. I was playing with my own head.
Mm-hmm. I feel you. I spent
And
so much of Sawyer's pregnancy or birth, like hearing this voice going, "You're doing it wrong. You're
Mhm.
not pushing right. This isn't gonna get a baby out." Like it was just like
Yeah.
nasty.
Hmm.
So weird.
Yeah, it is. And I remember feeling so thankful that I had like done work sitting with these crazy thoughts
Yeah.
and like sitting with fears and just doing the thing anyway because I probably would have just went to the hospital had I
Mm.
not had those inner resources. It's so easy to. It's such an easy choice. Yeah, it's such an easy yeah, just take my pain away, give me the meds, whatever. But I actually didn't find myself wanting that, thankfully. Um, which I was surprised by. I thought I would be begging to go to the hospital. I had told Ray and my mom, like, if I ask and nothing's wrong, just,
Yeah.
reassure me and that's it. Um, yeah. So anyway, she got here. I felt like I had gotten out of my rhythm. It had been, I remember telling her, I'm gonna go wake up right now. Like, I need him in here. I'm gonna go wake him up. And she was like, you don't want to let him sleep for a little longer? And I was like, no, it's already been like an hour. And she said it's only been 10 minutes. Like, it had been so long in my mind, laboring with this child inside of me. But I woke him up anyways. I didn't care. And you came
Of
back in late.
course.
Yeah.
Duh.
And I did feel better. I remembered, what was it? What book was it? I think the audio book to, I don't know, it was some audio book about birth. And she had said in there to puff your belly out when you're breathing through your contractions, like puff your belly out and it helps you dilate more. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And for some reason, connecting my belly to the breath, it helped and I got through it. Um, It took me a minute to get up the courage to admit that I was like blaming myself for the birth not progressing how I wanted to. And finally, I just said it. I was like, it's my fault. And my mom and Ray were like, it's not your fault. You're doing great. You are progressing. But I didn't believe them. And I have a friend who attends birth outside the system too. So I called her. I called her and I asked her, I just told her, I can't do this anymore. I cannot do this anymore. I don't know what to do. Um, yeah, I told her that, and she listened to me basically ranting about my
Mhm.
horrible birth experience, and she said, "Okay, well, how long have you been in labor?" And I told her, and she said, "Okay." Like I was expecting her to be outraged with me. And she said, "Okay, it sounds like everything's going normal." And it sounds like that's a normal amount of time to be in labor. So I think you're okay. And I was like, she's crazy. Like, there's no way this is okay. There's no way that I can do this. She's wrong.
Mhm.
Ray's wrong. My mom's wrong. Everyone's wrong. I can't do this. And I'm not progressing. And I finally went to the toilet and I grabbed a hand mirror to look down there and I saw the water bag just like right
Hey,
there.
there we go.
Yeah. And I was so relieved. I was
Hmm.
so relieved. Like, okay, I really am progressing. This
Yeah.
isn't all for nothing. But the issue was, I was thinking his head was right there with it. So I was like, oh, transition's over. Time to push. Like, I was like, yeah, because I was just so tired. And I was like, if his head's right there, I don't care if I have the urge to push or not. I'm pushing. Like, I want to be done with this. So I start pushing, pushing, pushing. And then my water broke and there was no head. And I was like, dang. I thought it was going to be over. This isn't it. It was so intense. But I was excited, and my mom reminded me, like, okay, now that your water broke, things are probably going to pick up now. Like, you can do this. I was like, okay, I can do this. And then at some point, remember I said, like, part of um, my desire to have a free birth came from my mom telling me, like, you don't need meds. It's all over as soon as the baby's here. And she said that. I was really struggling with it, saying I can't do it. And she was like, remember, it all goes away as soon as the baby comes out. All you have to do is push, 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 push the baby out. And I was like, oh yeah, just push the baby out and all this can be over. So I'm pushing. I was probably pushing for like an hour with my contractions because I was really trying to force them out. And I thought it to myself, like, you're gonna hurt yourself, girl. Like, don't do this. You're probably gonna tear if you do this. I didn't care. I like consciously made that choice. I was like, I don't care if I tear. I just need this baby out. And then it got to the point where I guess his head was, I mean, obviously now I know his head was coming out. And I remember thinking, if I push as hard as I need to push right now, I'm gonna rip in half. Like my whole body's just gonna rip in half. I can't do that. And then I asked myself, like, well, what options do you have? You don't have any other options. So I just pushed as hard as I could on that last push. And he came out, his head came out, and they said his head came out. And I felt so relieved again. Like, okay, his head is here. I can do this. This is the easy part now. And so I did one more push on my next contraction, which came like really fast. And he just flopped right out and he started crying right away. And yeah, instantly my body felt at peace. Like everything in me felt really grounded. I had actually asked for a very grounded birth experience because the whole psychedelic birth experience, it tripped me out. I was like, no, I don't want that. Like, I want to be here. I want to feel like I'm here and in my body because I'm naturally I'm very like cerebral and I'm always thinking, and that's what ends up getting me. It always bites me in the butt. So I didn't want,
Worse.
yeah. And I was really happy I did have it was just, I felt so in my body, like more present in my body than I have probably ever felt. And that was good. And then as soon as he was here, it like deepened. And my mom said, Arie, you did it. It's a boy. And I looked and I was like, yeah, no one had to announce that. Like he was bright red, like his little private part was so bright red. I was like, yeah, that's obviously a boy. And I brought him up to my breast and I started nursing him like immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And that was beautiful. No, actually, that was after the fact. He sounded really gunky. So I was rubbing his little back, um, trying to like help get some of that out. I rubbed his back a little bit. And then what? I think actually my mom said, like, do you think we should suction him? And I was like, no, he's okay. And then he started eating, and everyone was so surprised that he started eating. I got really lightheaded, like really, really lightheaded. I remember I was like all in my zone with the baby. And then I thought to myself, like, oh, you better go lay down. Like, you need to lay down. I could tell that, I could tell that when my mom seen the blood, she like, because there was quite a bit of blood that came out when he did. I could tell when she seen that she got nervous, but she was trying to keep her cool, you know? And I wasn't nervous about it at all. But when I got lightheaded, I was like, I better lay down just to make sure I don't pass out and then freak everyone out.
Yeah.
So they helped me get into the bed with the baby. I just kept nursing him. And within 10 minutes, I felt so uncomfortable. I could feel that the placenta was like, get me out of here. So
Mm-hmm.
about 15 minutes later, because it took them some time to get a bowl and stuff and help me get up with him. I like squatted, tugged on the cord a little bit, got the placenta out. And that was super easy. I was nervous about it because I've heard so many things.
Yeah. The
But
drama
yeah,
stories.
yeah, no, it was totally fine. It was no big deal at all to get that out. And then yeah, then the food came and my sisters came. I remember every time like my best friend came, my two sisters came, and my mom's boyfriend came immediately after having him. And I remember every time someone walked in the door, I just felt so proud. Like, look, it's me and my little baby. Like, I just felt so happy. And it was amazing. I felt so incredible. I felt so incredible. They brought me food and drinks and tea, and everyone was cleaning the house, and I'm just snuggled up with the baby. And it was just great. It was exactly what I wanted, you know? My mom had made pozole. That was what I wanted for my first meal after birth. And she had made it a couple weeks before and we had it in the freezer. So she heated that up and I got to eat my pozole. Um, yeah, it was great. It was great.
And so now you're 3 months out. How has this shaped you? You know, what do you notice now as you've crossed this threshold into motherhood with this experience at your back?
I think that the surrender you have to have in order to push the baby out, or at least the surrender I felt like I needed to push the baby out. Like you have to just let go of control. Like it doesn't stop with birth. It's a reoccurring thing because we cannot control, you know, all these things that we think we can control. So my first 10 days after having him, I felt very anxious, very, very anxious.
Mm.
Um,
What
and
was that about?
I don't know. It stopped. Like day 10 hit and it was just gone. I don't know. I don't know if it was my hormones or what, but I just felt so anxious. Um, and I had to keep returning to that, like, you need to surrender because I guess the thoughts I was having with the anxiety was something, I don't want something to happen to my baby.
Yeah.
Is he okay? Is he okay? Is he okay? Of course, feeling like I had to watch his breathing every 3 seconds and make sure he was actually alive. It was that. And yeah, I just had to keep reminding myself, you take as good care of him as you can, and that's it. That's all you can do. Um, you have to surrender. You have to surrender. I just kept coming back to that over and over and over. Um, it was tough. And then, because I still haven't gotten his birth certificate or anything like that. I tried to start the process right away. And looking back on it, I would say that is something in my postpartum that I regret because I went to get him his newborn exam where I declined all these things when he was 4 days old. And that was horrible
Yeah, why did you do that? Why did you do it so
because
early?
everything that I had read and like heard from people in California, you only have 10 days to get that exam and like register the birth. And then I realized there's literally a $27 fee if you don't do it within a certain amount of time. I will pay, like, I would much rather have paid a fee, but I didn't. Yeah, I
Got it.
went, yeah. And I think too, because I had a lot of, I was like grappling with myself a lot over like the choice to take him and beating myself up over it a lot too. Like, why did I do that? Because it was
Mm.
the worst car ride ever.
Oh, I
We
bet.
were both crying the whole time, me and the
Oh my
baby.
God.
Um, but when I look back at it, it wasn't just that. Because what were they gonna do? Tell me I couldn't register the baby's birth if I didn't do it in 10 days? Like,
Right.
even if it was like whatever, I don't think that mattered to me. But because I was so anxious, I wanted someone to tell me my baby was okay. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, because once we left and the doctor that did his exam was great, thankfully. Like she was like, wow, you guys just had him at home, just you guys. Like she was all for it and so excited. And she was telling us how he looked great and blah, blah, blah. She wanted us to give him a couple shots. And I was like, no, it's okay. Yeah, we declined them. And that was the only thing that she even like suggested that didn't feel good, you know? And I was happy about that the visit went as good as it possibly could have. But yeah, when I look back, I wanted the validation of someone telling me my baby was okay. Um, but it didn't matter because I was still anxious and hoping my baby was okay for like the next 6 days after that. It was just
Gotcha. It didn't like solve your problem.
no, no, um, no.
But I do think, I mean, there's layers to it because there's the like obvious layer of where so many of us are still like so trained to outsource authority to medical, providers.
Hmm.
But then there's also, I think, a very human, a very motherly, just a very human desire for witnessing and validation. And it's so meaningful to have someone look at your baby and say, what a perfect baby, like it's layered, right? But like I remember in my first pregnancy, I had a wild pregnancy and my mom palpated the baby just for fun, maybe around like 18, 19 weeks. And I'll never forget. She was like touching it and then she like felt the baby and she made a joke and she was like, yep, you're definitely pregnant. And I remember a part of me was like, oh, thank God.
Hmm.
Like someone else is acknowledging my pregnancy. Thank
Yes.
God this is real. And I
Yeah.
think that's great. I think it's been heavily abused, heavily taken advantage of our
Mhm.
desire for that stuff. But when we can kind of move beyond, some of those outer layers and just know that, I think we can set ourselves up to get that from our community without needing to get it from the outsourced authorities. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah, I do. So in my that doctor's appointment I had at the end of my pregnancy, I wouldn't let them do anything, but she asked, she wanted to palpate my belly. And I was like, okay, yeah, well, you can do that. And she did, and she told me she felt the baby's head because I had a fetoscope, and I would just feel around too. And I had been able to make out everything, consistently hear the heartbeat, but I never could feel the head. So
Yeah.
I had this fear in my mind that my baby didn't have head, that my
Mhm.
baby was just growing with no head. Because where was it?
I did the same thing.
I was like, where is it? So I remember after that appointment, despite all the like crazy icky stuff that happened there, that was said there, I felt so good to know my baby did in fact have a head.
Yeah, feel
That
you.
felt extremely validating.
Or at least some random stranger thinks she felt one.
Yes, precisely.
So then the anxiety passes. You said around 10 days
Yeah.
postpartum.
Yep, 10 days. It like I felt much, much better, much less anxious. And then someone told me about motherwort. So I
Hmm.
took the motherwort and that really, really was supportive
Yeah.
for my emotional state at the time. And yeah, after that, it just like, I think there was a significant drop in my anxiety, and then it just like slowly tapered off from that point on. And now I feel, it's funny, like even in the bed this morning, I was looking at him and I was like, yeah, you are here. Like, you're really here, little guy.
Takes a minute, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes a minute. It definitely isn't just like in one go.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Well, love it. You did it.
I did it. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. It's great being a mom. It's this, I don't know. I don't think there's anything, and I have hopefully a lot of life to live still, but I just can't think of anything that could feel better than like looking at my child. Like literally just looking at him. The fact that he exists brings me so much joy.
I know. The only thing I could think of is like looking at all of my children. You know what I mean? Like, I only have 2 now, but like imagine however many we're gonna have.
Yeah.
That is a trip. That's like a realm I haven't, experienced yet. But like, what is that like to see your whole little crew,
Yeah.
Well, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
You crushed it.
Thank you.
And if women want to find you on Instagram or connect with you, how can they do that?
So my Instagram is Mama Love Grounds. It's MAMALUV, Grounds, Mama Love Grounds. And my website is the same thing. I'm in Ventura County, California. If anyone needs a birth keeper, I got you. Yeah, that's me. I do host women's circles and things like that here too.
Nice.
Yeah, so if anyone's listening and you're out here, hit me up on Instagram and we can get connected in real life.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the show today. You can support this podcast by donating to it on freebirthsociety.com and leaving an awesome review on whatever platform you listen on. The more reviews, the more visibility the show gets, so let's spread the word of sovereign birth. We've always got a lot going on at Free Birth Society, and you can find out about all of it at freebirthsociety.com, at Free Birth Society on Instagram, and opt in to my newsletter below in the show notes. We offer courses on free birth, authentic midwifery, and the blood mysteries, as well as one-on-one coaching, in-person retreats, and of course, our annual Women's Festival. Our exclusive, vetted, private membership is definitely something to check out if you're looking for a community of wise sisters. Together we rise. We must speak our stories, claim our lives, and support one another. This is the living revolution, and I am so grateful to be in it with all of you. I'll leave you with our epic Free Birth Society theme song, Wild Woman by Aruba Red.
I honor you for the wisdom you held, the ancient traditions of plant medicine and womb magic. I feel the spirit of the ancestors as I place my hands upon my belly. This sacred portal will be honored. Eons upon light beams of survival, withstanding the eradication of our power by design. I will not allow the separation of our young to be forced upon me. My sisters will no longer birth in captivity. The picket line redefined from burning our wild women to paralyzing us and drugging our babes. Strapped down in a clinical white bed, drying up the milk from our breasts. Keep your needles. My family will never again be doomed to chase those dragons or your poison. We reject your fear. We choose love. Everything with intention. Death, ascension. I will fly and bring her back from the stars.